This is Ashley.
And Cindy.
And this is Life for Dummies.
Because we're real dumb.
Yes. What are we talking about today?
I thought today we should talk about character defects.
Oh, that's a great topic.
Yeah, because I know we say that a lot on here, but I don't really think we've ever specifically talked about a character defect and what it does.
Yes, totally. I have plenty.
Me too.
However, I used to think I didn't really have too many. And that's where, when I changed that mentality in a state of love and self-acceptance, everything started to change for me.
Yeah. So the first time someone told me that I was acting out on a character defect, I was like, that's a defense mechanism. I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, that's absolutely what that is, but it is not becoming of you anymore. And I was like, what? Excuse me? Do you know who you're talking to? And they're like, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking to. Another bozo on the bus. So I have these character defects within me, and they are certain behaviors that served me in my active addiction. They did. They protected me and they got me through life. But when I start living this way of life, they are no longer working for me. They are working against me. And they are making my life unmanageable when I'm acting out on them.
What are some of your top?
Well, I get defensive. If challenged, I get very defensive real quick. I like to procrastinate sometimes. That's a big one. I have, sometimes my self-love is not there. I don't talk nicely to myself sometimes. Those are my top 3 that I act out on.
Mine is guilt. I feel really guilty all the time. And also procrastination, and it's more of a self-sabotage because I feel like I don't deserve it. Mm-hmm. And just really being negative a lot of the times, about my situation, circumstance, wanting to feel self-pity, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and another one for me is self-righteousness, right? Sometimes I think oh, I know best. And that's not really true, I know what works for me, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody else if they choose to not let it, and I'm not always right. That goes in there with that. So I didn't really know exactly what character defects were when I first got here. So I had to Google that, and I went online and I was lists of character defects. And all kinds of stuff came up, and I thought, wow, I have a lot of those.
That's so funny.
Yeah, a lot. And so, with awareness of these character defects comes the ability to not act out on them anymore.
When we don't act out on our character defects, we are acting in our higher power's will for our lives. And then we start getting all of these really great gifts and blessings.
And we stop creating damage too, to ourselves and to other people. And those gifts that we talk about, the peace and serenity and not living in guilt and shame anymore, those are a direct result of not acting out on these character defects that all of us have. We're human. We all have them. Whether you want to think you do or not, you do.
A lot of the times, our character defects are the things that we get really annoyed at in other people.
Yeah, like Ashley said before, you spot it, you got it.
And that's a really hard pill to swallow, because I get so annoyed at someone else when, if I'm really honest, I am doing that behavior on a daily or consistent basis. It's a part of my character in a defective way.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those things, if we did it a little bit, it wouldn't be so bad, but it becomes such a gigantic behavior and such a gigantic part of who we are that we're harming ourselves and harming others by acting out on it. That's when it becomes a character defect. And that's when we really need to, figure out, how can I stop doing this? So what's really cool is like I can look up the opposite of a character defect. Like, so when I'm really hard on myself and I beat myself up, what's the opposite of that? That would be self love. So today I try to act in self love, not self hate.
Right. And whenever we are in active addiction, a lot of the times the root cause is selfishness and self obsession. And it's tricky because, like, the diseased mind will convince me otherwise. It'll convince me that I'm actually doing my best for everyone in my life, and I have to turn to this drug of choice in order to keep helping all the other people in my life so that I can maintain and manage all of this pain that I'm incurring upon myself. And that's all actually, like, first thought wrong,
Mm-hmm.
twisted thinking. In fact, you have a diseased mind, like this is a terminal illness, and it itself is causing these character flaws that then create chaos and emotional pain in our lives. And so if we just like stop and put a stop to it, where the first step is to just not use just for today, we have a fighting chance at the peace not only coming into our life, but into the lives of those we are around.
Yeah. So the biggest lie, when you said that, it reminded me that the biggest lie I ever told myself was by doing the things I was doing, I was only harming myself. Right. And
Yeah.
yeah. And I think a lot of us tell ourselves that I'm only hurting myself. This has nothing to do with anyone else. Like, mind your own business. And that just couldn't be more, of a lie that I told it was just such a huge lie. I was hurting everyone around me because they're watching me do these things to myself. And I'm like, don't you talk to me about this. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know what I'm going to get. Yeah, you're going to die, you know? And it's just, it's, I'm so stuck in this mindset. I'm so stuck in these character defects that I don't see any other way out. And it's, man, it makes me feel not great, even just talking about it. It takes me back to a place where, you know, not a good time in my life where I was very proud of who I was. And today, because of living this new way of life where I changed my perspective to change my life, I don't have to live like that anymore. And I don't have to believe those old lies.
Yeah, and that's why honestly, like the only requirement is to, a desire to stop. And like until we put down our crutch or whatever it is that we're turning to in order to keep this life that we've created that has chaos or toxicity in it, until we put down that crutch, we will never see how deep all of this defective behavior, defective parts of ourselves goes. Like if we never give ourselves the chance and put down the crutch, whatever it is that we're turning to, whether it be drugs, whether it be food, gambling, sex, exercise, it could be anything today, social media, until we put that and remove it from our lives just for today, like for enough time, we won't be able to give ourselves the space we need to recover.
Yeah, and that's what we need. We need to give ourselves space. We need to give ourselves some peace. We need to give ourselves a chance. I was taught that you just need to give yourself a break. Stop being so hard on yourself. Stop expecting perfection from an imperfect person. When I stop doing all these things and I'm just kind to myself, and I'm like, you know what, for the next hour, I'm just not going to beat myself up about some of these things. And I'm not going to use, no matter what, I'm not going to turn to that crutch. I'm just going to take a deep breath and pause and ask for help.
And normally, at least for me, when I did that and I paused, it was like, I'm in so much pain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm in so much pain. Like, I could hardly make it through 5 minutes, much less an hour.
Yeah, it's scary at first. It's very scary when you make that decision to not do those things anymore. But I'm going to tell you, it gets a little bit easier each time you choose yourself over a substance or over whatever it is. When you choose yourself, you're going to win every time. If I keep choosing all the things I always did, I'm going to get what I always got. And I don't want that anymore. That's not acceptable to me today. It's not acceptable to act out on these character defects. It's harmful to myself, it's harmful to others. And today I want to live a life of peace and serenity. And I want to be happy, joyous, and free. And there's only one way to do that.
Yeah, so imagine the amount of emotional or pain or turmoil interiorly that we experience when we put down that crutch, even just for 5 minutes or an hour. That equates to how bad things actually are in our life on a character defective way, and like a toxic situations and realities and painful experiences that we're putting ourselves in. Like, it is a direct reflection of how much needs to change actually in your life.
And you only need to change one thing everything.